The other story is now the same question is, okay, that's Phoenix. That's giving us controlled evidence, or it will produce controlled evidence through an interventional randomized blinded trial. What about the population level? When you want to implement pharmacogenomics, you're implementing at a population level. Whilst Phoenix will generate really important metrics, we wanted to look at the population and see what can we glean from the population on pharmacogenomic opportunity. Because in Scotland, like with most of the health systems, pharmacogenomics is not, they're all PGX naive. So pharmacogenomics not used. What we want to know is what's the potential opportunity for pharmacogenomics if we implement pharmacogenomics, and what would be how do we implement pharmacogenomics so that everybody benefits. What we have here is, because of our healthcare data system, we have a real world lens on exposure, equity, and complexity at a population level. We looked at data on everybody who were 51 years or above in Glasgow on January 1st, 2012. That's about 471,000 patients, all 51 years old. About 65% of them received at least one PGX implicated drug in 1 year. We just looked at 2015, and at least 60%. If you scale that to the Scottish population of over 50 years old, that's about 1 million patients. So 1 million patient gets exposed to at least one pharmacogenetic drug within 12 months. And that brings the concept that it's so pervasive that when you talk about pharmacogenetics, it has to be infrastructure, not as a special test. So these are the numbers. So we looked at data in 3 snapshots, 2016, 2019, 2021. This is a closed cohort, meaning I got everybody over the age of 51 in 2012 and got all their data, healthcare data, dispensing data, everything until 2022. So that's 10 years of data. And we got prescribing, hospital admissions, death records, deprivation, drug gene mapping. We got all that and did a lot of analysis. And I'm going to quickly go through a few results, and I won't go into the details because it's beyond the scope of this talk, but it'll give you some headline insights. The first result we got is entry into pharmacogenomic prescribing. Is it, when does a patient get their first, or who are the patients who get their first pharmacogenomic implicated drug? We looked at multimorbidity, we looked at deprivation, and we looked at polypharmacy. And the best results are with polypharmacy. So if you look at polypharmacy, what we find is polypharmacy, the baseline number of drugs at any point predicts entry into pharmacogenomic prescribing. So if you're on 5 baseline drugs, you have a 35% higher chance of starting a new PGX drug. Meaning you're on 5 drugs, but none of those are pharmacogenomic drugs. So you're on polypharmacy with non-pharmacogenomic drugs. The higher the number of drugs you're on, you have a 35% plus chance of starting a drug in that year. What does that mean? That means medicine count flags the patient about to cross into a territory where a pharmacogenomic test would pay off. In contrast, so as I mentioned, with entry into a new pharmacogenomic drug, the number of baseline drugs predict. What about intensification? If you're already on one pharmacogenetic drug, do you cluster? Do you start piling up more pharmacogenomic drugs? And that's 0. So polypharmacy, the number of drugs that you're on, can predict entry into new pharmacogenomic prescribing, but it does not predict. There's no relation between that and piling up multiple drugs within a year. So that's an interesting insight, which is new. What about the cumulative value? We all say that the drug panel can be used and reused over time. What's the value? So we looked at, again, 3 groups of drugs. We looked at how many drug gene interactions can a panel of tests inform over 5 years. So we looked at the PREPARE panel, the 12 gene panel. We looked at the sort of slightly expanded Phoenix panel, which is the guideline tier. And we looked at the total PGX, the universe of pharmacogenomic drugs. And what's the number of drug-gene interactions impacted over 5 years? And that's about 78. 78 drug-gene interactions impacted for the current guideline group of drugs. If you look at the whole pharm GKB, the full universe of drugs is 145. We also did some sensitivity analysis. So you could say that, yeah, but this is a closed cohort. So over 10 years, people are dying. So the number of people comes down. So when we did the survivor cohort, everybody who survived the whole 10 years, the number is still the same. It's about 69 drug-gene interactions are informed over a 5-year period. So you can see the compounding happening with pharmacogenomic tests, panel tests. What about value? Now, we look at two metrics. One is yield, and that's the left side graph. And what we show is, so the important thing here is, this is where I'm bringing the PREPARE alignment with our Phoenix trial. PREPARE published health economics. We transport the PREPARE metrics into our population, 470,000 patient metrics, to build this. That's more accurate than us modeling scenarios. This is still scenario-based implementation, but it gives you some idea. So what we have is that yield rises with baseline polypharmacy. So the more drugs you are at baseline, the yield, the number of DGI per eligible per patient increases. So from a person on 1 baseline drug to a person on 5 baseline drug is from 24 to 58 DGI. So that's the rise in DGIs. What about value? And the cost per quality declines from 13,000 to 5,000. So if you were to target pharmacogenomics based on polypharmacy levels, you get more value if you first target, everybody needs their pharmacogenetic, but if you first target the people with multiple drugs and then go backwards. We looked at multimorbidity, we looked at deprivation to see whether can we use multimorbidity as a trigger, or could we use deprivation as a trigger, because we know deprived individuals have more morbidity and they're on more drugs. But all the scenarios showed that polypharmacy is the best metric. Multimorbidity is good, but polypharmacy, that metric is already available in the health records readily. Multimorbidity has to be calculated, and there are a lot of errors, missed diagnoses, which can impact that. Whereas medicine is just a prescription and it's a count. It's readily available at no extra cost. So we looked at multimorbidity and deprivation, and what we show is polypharmacy, and this is where this modeling showed polypharmacy captures 67.9% of eligible patients, whereas multimorbidity captured 65%. This is modeling assuming that you won't be testing everybody. So if you test about 40% of the cohort, so from about 35% to about 70% of the cohort, if you test that range of testing, at every point, polypharmacy is more favorable. Deprivation is interesting. It's a poor trigger, but what we show is this is neutral. If you trigger pharmacogenetic testing using polypharmacy, it captures inequity. You don't amplify inequities or disparities by this method. And does it pay? If you take the PREPARE economics and transport to Glasgow 400K patients, there are about 138,000 high medication eligible patients, more than 5 medicines in one health board. The PREPARE health metrics, when you transport it, we are saving about 245 to 400 quality adjusted life years, and that's equivalent to about 12 to 15 million in avoided downstream costs. This is illustrative because we will get more actual data once Phoenix publishes, but we don't expect it to deviate much from PREPARE.